Hi, this is Common Interest. I'm Nima, and I'm doing the breakdown analysis of the common print run for Dominaria, which came out a couple weeks ago now, and really exciting set. I didn't really think the commons would be this important because a lot of the uncommons and rares they're just completely busted. But a lot of the commons are also beefed up in power level a lot, and it's actually made a very interesting format where the commons do give it a run for its money. So I'm just gonna skip through a lot of the stuff. It is a big set, which is now every set's a big set. So it's gonna have the same number of rares and everything from now on, I'm pretty sure. But just to get into the commons, there are 101 commons. Just like uncommons and rares, they are separated into these groups where they do not intermix. There are run A commons, run B commons, and then run C commons. And you'll have each in your pack. You will either get C1 commons or C2. The C's run is broken up into two different groups. There are 33 cards in run A, and they are blue, white, and red. There are 22 cards in run B, which are black and green. And then C1 has 27 cards plus 1. It includes all the colors, and it includes also the stronger removal spells, stronger flyers, and stronger creatures in general. Run C2 has 18 plus 1, and it's about the same thing. Includes artifacts, has all the colors, and the plus 1 is Pardic Wanderer. The big artifact creature is the short printed card in the set. So there are 5 Pardic Wanderers for every 6 Eviscerates is the way that it works out. It shows up in both run C1 and C2 on a smaller level, so this gets short printed. In a pack, you will have the 1 rare / mythic rare in the back and 3 uncommons right before that. And the gimmick of this set is that if your rare is not a legendary creature, then you are guaranteed to have a uncommon legendary creature in the back of the pack. If the rare is legendary, you can still have a chance of having the uncommon legendary, but it is a separate sheet, and that's the gimmick that goes on in this set. You are guaranteed to have a legendary creature in the pack, but that's not to do with the commons. The commons will have, there's 10 in total. There will be 2 to 4 from run A, 2 from run B, and then it will fill out with either 4 to 6 from run C1 or C2. If there are 4 run A cards, you will have 4 C2 cards, and otherwise you'll have C1 cards that are 5 to 6. And then there's 1 basic land that rounds out the total 15. And to give a sample of the commons that will show up in the pack, I have an example here. So run A, like I said, blue, red, and white cards that are generally pretty weak, they will show up in the front. And then you'll have 2 cards from run B, which are black and green. And the way that this works out is that it pretty much guarantees that you have 1 common of each color. It's not 100% guaranteed, because if you have 2 cards from run A, then you are going to be missing a color that may not show up in C1. And then, for example, this pack will round out with these C1 cards, which include an artifact, and then it also has these removal spells, Eviscerate in the strong card, Land and War Elves, but it also has just some dirtily stuff like Unwind, which is just some bad cards mixed in there as well. But all the strong cards show up in the C runs. To give some more examples of packs that are just written out here that were transcribed. Just an example, over here we have Gitu Lava Runner, Sarah Disciple, Tolarian Scholar is the run A for this pack, so red, white, blue. And then you have 2 cards from run B, Rat Colony and Corrosive Ooze, black and green. And then it fills out with Primordial Worm, Navigator's Compass, Cloud Sphinx, Fiery Intervention, Blood Towel Candle. This is a C1 pack. It has these 2 dorky artifacts, and it's got a strong flyer, Cloud Sphinx, and Fiery Intervention being a strong removal spell. And I can give you another example over here of a C2 pack. It has 4 cards from run A, Befuddle, Skirk, Prospector, Sergeant at Arms, Coldwater Snapper, then 2 cards from run B, Dark Bargain, Landwar Scout, and then C2 rounds out with Academy Journey Mage, Keldon Overseer, Baloth Gorger, and Guardians of Koilos. And the kind of overall effect of this is, in addition to having 1 common of each color, you will have the back of the pack will have basically guarantee of about 2 to 3 strong cards, like sometimes 1 strong card, but it gives a certain consistent balance. You won't have all very strong removal spells in your pack, and you will also not have 0 strong commons in your pack, and that's kind of how that works out. There is a small chance that you have 4 run B cards, and that's about a 1 in 11 chance. And if there's a foil in your pack, it will push out a common of any run. For example, over here in this pack, there's only 3 run C2 cards because the foil pushed 1 out. Over here, a foil pushed out a run B card. There's only 1 run B card here, Mammoth Spider. And let's move on to the actual print runs. So run A has 33 cards, 11 of each color, white, blue, and red. The print run is just rotating in this order: red, white, blue, red, white, blue. So if I go to an example pack, like the one I showed you, Key2 Lava Runner, Sarah Disciple, Tolarian Scholar, these three, this snippet will show up somewhere in this list. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, yeah, Sarah Disciple, Key2 Lava Runner, Sarah Disciple, Tolarian Scholar. It shows up in this little snippet over here. And like I said, this doesn't seem to have anything really strong. There's Deep Freeze is a consideration for the strongest one here. Sergeant of Arms is okay. I personally like Gitu Chronicler a lot, but it's still not something that you're going to take in the first 5, and Syncopate's in here as well. And everything else is kind of, you will not pick it in the first 5 of your pick. The general theme is they're not super strong. Like Invoke the Divine, you will play it, but you will not pick it early. So for that reason, it's not very interesting to analyze this. There are a couple things that show up next to each other all the time. For example, Opt and Gitu Journey Mage, both positions on the print run, they show up next to each other. But both these cards go pretty late, and it's not really a very interesting thing to think, oh, someone took an Opt out of this pack, like 10th pick. Who cares? Going on to run B, this has the same kind of issue where most of these cards aren't that great. They are 11 green cards and 11 black cards. Grow from the Ashes and Caligo Skin Witch kind of stand out to me as like the only possible early picks that you might take out of here. I don't have the print run organized for this just because it only comes in groups of 2, so it's very hard to put together. But again, it's not super interesting to look at either way. But these are the weaker green and black commons, and now we'll move on to run C1, where it gets a lot more interesting. There is cards of every single color, and then you also have the strong removal spells like Eviscerate and Sheevan Fire and Fire Intervention here, as well as like Land of War Elves, and all the blue cards except for Unwind seem to be pretty good. Blink of an Eye, Cloud Ranger Sphinx, and Academy Drake. C1 is very nice too. And then it also has a bunch of artifacts in here as well, which is a lot more than usual for a set. It's not an artifact set, but it seems to have like a comparable number of artifacts to an artifact set, for example, like Kaladesh. And in this, there isn't a particular ordering to this print run at all. The commons are pretty spaced out by color. So a nice little feature of this is that if you get past a Land of War Elves, for example, and there's a common missing, you can be absolutely certain that green common wasn't taken out of the pack, because like Land of War Elves will not show up with Sapling Migration ever, or it can't show up with Baloth Gorger, for example, because Baloth Gorger is in C2. So if you take a Land of War Elves late in a pack, you can be almost completely sure that green is open. There's always a chance they took an uncommon or something like that, but the commons are safe. And that's not so the one exception for that is that because there are more black cards in C1, that's not the black cards aren't totally safe. For example, I found that this Eviscerate can show up with a Thallid Omnivore, so if you see a Thallid Omnivore late, that doesn't mean that black is safe. There may have been an Eviscerate in the pack, but everything else, all the other colors are pretty good for you. The groupings I found in this that are worthwhile to note, the big one is that Jousting Lance shows up with Sapling Migration in both positions. Interesting for sealed because these cards actually go really well together. So if you open a pack with Sapling Migration, you'll have a Jousting Lance right next to there for you to put both in your deck. And in draft, you might take a Migration and maybe wheel Jousting Lance, which is, it could happen. But this has been moving up in everyone's pick order, I think, the Lance. So it might not come back around. But you get a pack pass to you. There is a common missing. There is no Sapling Migration. There is a Jousting Lance. Someone probably took Sapling Migration, and you should stay out of green. Beyond that, there's another grouping here. Navigator's Compass shows up with Cloud Ranger Sphinx, which is easy to note because Navigator's Compass will go very late. So you'll know that you'll see the Sphinx there, or it will be missing, and you'll know that someone is taking blue cards. And a weaker one here is that Land of War Elves shows up with Sparring Construct here, and then if you wrap around, it shows up 2 positions away from Sparring Construct here. So not totally a a safe look, or it's not a safe pairing, but Sparring Construct implies that Llanowar Elves was started in the pack along with it. And let's see, I'll just round it out by just going to the C2 run, which has 18 cards showing up 3 times, and then Partic Wanderer, so it makes 55 in total. This print run isn't exactly precise. I put it together the best that I could, and I filled in some gaps that I didn't really know exactly where things are. So I wouldn't use this as a hard guide. What I did find out for sure is that the spacing isn't great on this one. Even though there's only 4 cards, it would be easy to space it, but it was not. The big one I found was that Pegasus Courser shows up with Plus Light, and I found both of those white commons to be pretty strong. So Pegasus Courser, not a super safe pickup because it could have started with a Blessed Light, and you might be getting cut right after that. For everything else, Vicious Offering is pretty safe just because there's only 2 black cards in here. And the pairing that I did find was that Baloth Gorger shows up with Guardians of Koilos all 3 times, which is very unusual for a C2 run. But if you see a Guardians and no Baloth Gorger, avoid green. It's not 100%, I think it's about a 75% chance that they show up together, so don't go off the deep end on this and get mad at me. But it is worthwhile to note. And just going to move on to the hacks, and I should have said this at the front. Magic Online does not use this print runs exactly, so don't apply these to Magic Online. I'm not sure if foreign packs do this exactly as well. I think this is only for packs made in the US, even though I think I did look at some of the European packs and it seemed to follow this ordering as well. But I just want to give that disclaimer, I guess. But the hacks, easy things to remember. C1 colored cards that aren't black are open signals. You should take them and feel great about it. Jousting Lance shows up with Sapling Migration. Navigator's Compass shows up with Cloudrunner's Fangs. Guardians of Koilos shows up with Baloth Gorger. And Sparring Construct shows up with Llanowar Elves. And I think those are the big takeaways. Don't focus too much on these exactly because it is a pretty complicated set. I think it's a very hard set to draft in general, and there's a lot of things to keep in mind all the time. I hope this makes it easier instead of more complicated. Do not try to keep this in your head and push good things out, but these are what I think are the easy things to remember for you, and hope you have fun drafting. Thanks for watching.